Greetings, I'm Keith Klein, the host of the VentureFizz podcast, where I interview the most fascinating people in the tech scene. This is episode 356, and today's guests are Erika Ebbel and Colin Engel. I've had co-founders on my podcast in the past, but it is very rare that I have a married couple, and it is very hard not to use the phrase power couple on this one. Having both Erika and Colin on this podcast was awesome, as we were able to dig into both of their background stories and professional journeys. If you are in the Boston tech scene, you probably know about Colin as a co-founder and former CEO of iRobot, but equally impressive is his wife Erika. Here are some examples of her many professional accomplishments. BS in chemistry from MIT, Ph.D. in biochemistry from BU, 2004 Miss Massachusetts, founder of a nonprofit organization called Science from Scientists, which teaches STEM lessons to students in grades 3rd through 8, TEDx speaker about your gut microbiome that has over 2 million views on YouTube, co-founder and CEO of Ixcela. Speaking of Ixcela, they are a pioneering company in internal fitness specializing in the gut microbiome. The company recently announced its Ixcela Cancer Support Program in collaboration with Roper St. Francis Healthcare, which showed the critical role that gut microbiome health plays in reducing cancer care side effects. Ixcela's support care is designed to be hyper-personalized to help mitigate symptoms and improve the patient's health. In this episode of our podcast, we also cover a discussion about the gut microbiome and Erika's research, the story of iRobot and how they discovered product market fit through a combination of work in mine hunting algorithms, industrial store cleaning, and the My Real Baby doll with Hasbro led to the creation of the Roomba, all the details about Ixcela and how their personalized care and support works, Colin's role in Ixcela as a member of its board of directors, the state of personalized healthcare and how AI has its place, but why the human element is still very important, the future of robotics and AI, plus a discussion about startup 10 Beauty, what dinner looks like in the Engel household, and so much more. Okay, before we get into this interview, here is a brief word from our podcast sponsor, Silicon Valley Bank. I'm excited to share that this podcast is brought to you by one of the strongest longtime supporters of the local startup ecosystem, that being Silicon Valley Bank, a division of First Citizens Bank. SVB serves innovative tech, healthcare, and life sciences companies, including 60% of CNBC's Disruptor 50 list, 72% of Forbes Cloud 100 list, and 48% of Forbes AI 50 list companies. With more than 1,500 bankers and relationship advisors and $42 billion in loans through Q2 2024, SVB delivers the right people, service, and resources to support your entire financial journey. Learn more at svb.com. All right, without further ado, here's my interview with Erika and Colin. Colin and Erika, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
So I'm excited to talk to both of you because we've got a lot to talk about. You are a married couple, both entrepreneurs, and we're going to talk about your path. And I've had guests in the past, and like to have a couple that is working as entrepreneurs and on different initiatives, I think is amazing and very unique. So it's something I've done in the past, but I haven't had a lot of episodes where I've done this, so I was excited. And what we're going to talk about is a lot about a company that you guys are working on now called Ixcela. And before we actually get into the weeds of that company, about what it is and the meaningful work you're doing, I thought it would be super helpful to kind of give a primer of what the overarching goal of your research, Erika. Like I watched a TED talk that I'm going to include in the notes, but I was sitting there learning it. It was about gut health. And there's so many terms I was learning about, and I just had me relate to my wife and my daughters who eat very healthy. So it kind of it resonated with me, but I thought it'd be a good starting point just to kind of talk to our audience about, you are what you eat and a healthy gut microbiome. Like, what does all that mean? And, how does it, and the benefits there?
Totally. So we could start with what is the gut microbiome, because for those who don't know what that term is. So from entry to exit, so from your mouth, right? When you consume food, your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach, your small intestine, large intestine, to exit, that entire digestive system, all of the critters and creatures that live inside of your digestive system, bacteria, fungi, viruses, everything that lives in there, the thousands, trillions of microorganisms that live in there they comprise the gut microbiome. And so, it's a really interesting environment. There is almost a Darwinian competition. So the little critters in there, all these different, whether they're bacteria, fungi, viruses, they are living in constant competition with each other. And the balance of and diversity of these different creatures really help to dictate the functionality of the gut. And this is extremely important because the gut is sort of central to everything. Yes, you are what you eat, because when you think about it, what you put into your body is what your gut microbiome processes, breaks down all of these different materials into the building blocks that your body uses for everything, down to building your immune system, the quality of your hair, your nails, your skin, your energy levels, your immunity, your immune system, your mental health. I mean, everything, right, comes from the gut microbiome. But essentially it's all the little critters that live inside of this giant tube that is inside of you, and their functionality. That is the gut microbiome.
No, and like healthy eating and organic foods and
Mhm.
probiotics, like they've all, kind of had their, I guess, movement, right? Where, soda now has, different, probiotic soda and like kombucha, like there's all these different things now that certainly didn't exist when I was a kid.
There are
So
lots of different terms. Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so like the key things that I learned, so tryptophan, right? Like you think of
Mhm.
that after you have your Thanksgiving turkey dinner, you get sleepy, but there was so much more to that, like how it helps with the mental health, happiness, and the impact on healthy sleep.
Yeah. So tryptophan is an essential amino acid. It means that you have to consume it in food. Your body cannot make it independently. So you have to eat, turkey is an example, but tryptophan, it's found in many different sources, whether it's eggs, salmon, beef. I mean, there's other sources, right, of it. It's an amino acid. So it's found in protein. And tryptophan is taken in by the body, and then certain bacteria in the gut will convert it into other things. So, like I mentioned, the building blocks, right? You eat this food, and your gut converts these molecules into other things that are important. So, for example, tryptophan is converted into serotonin. Serotonin is converted into melatonin. Melatonin, of course, helps you sleep. So that's where the turkey um, I wouldn't say it's a myth, but it's probably a bit of an over exaggeration. But the turkey coma, once you eat a little bit of turkey, your body converts that into serotonin, which is sort of the happiness chemical. It's known for helping to prevent anxiety. It's known for also for gut motility. So if you're constipated, really important to get enough serotonin in your diet. And 90% of serotonin is actually created in your gut, which is why it's so important, again, to have a healthy microbiome, those bacteria that convert the tryptophan to serotonin. And then serotonin gets converted into melatonin, which of course is important for sleep and sleep quality.
Yeah. And like I could go down even further this path, but I'm going to reserve some of this conversation and why we're talking about this for Ixcela, the company, the startup you guys are working on. But let's rewind the clock. So, Colin, where did you grow up? What were you like as a child?
I was I would say I was a builder as a child. I mean, it's kind of like this um, uh, unstoppable desire to create things. If I got put next to a stream, I would dam it and create a hydro paddle wheel. If you put me in front of Legos, I would create a robot or a building or um, uh, a Lego crossbow that would fire train track through 2x4s. And it was just a passion and kind of what I did. And so um uh I think that it sometimes one's future is plain for all to see as a child. And I think I was one of those people where it's like, yeah, he's probably going to go build stuff when he grows up. And uh, sure enough, going through school, it was like, okay, what is this class going to let me build? And if there was a good answer, then I was excited about it. And ultimately, that gave me a toolkit for future journeys.
And obviously, you went on to study at MIT. So, did you study robotics there?
well, they didn't have robotics per se at MIT.
Hmm.
So I kind of did my own thing. The same philosophy applied. Okay, I'm going to take some mechanical engineering classes because that's cool. I can learn how to go and build the physical parts of what I want to create. I want to learn about computers and how to build my own computers and sensors. I want to build and learn about artificial intelligence. And the moment at MIT, which really laid bare for me my journey was when I was walking back from class one day, trying to figure out what I was going to do for the summer, because until that moment, I had spent every summer as a wilderness guide out in Canada. But I think my parents had said, Colin, you should think about doing something useful over the summer. And so I was walking back with this guy. Who I don't think I ever walked back from class with before. And it was just weird. And I said, well, where are you going? And he said, well, I'm going to go apply for a job in a robot lab here at MIT. And I said, really? Can I come? And so he like begrudgingly let me come along to his interview. And this was like there was 80 of us applying for 3 positions at this robot lab for the summer, and they gave us a blank piece of paper, and they said, write down the things that you have built. That was the interview. And so 5 minutes later, 20% of the people were gone. 10 minutes later, 70% of the people were gone. And an hour later, I was still writing things down on this piece of paper. They're like, they like came over. It's like, are you done yet? It's like, no, no, I got a couple. It's like, no, no, I think you're done here. And my friend didn't get the job. I did get the job. It was at my future thesis advisor, Rod Brooks's lab, and he became my co-founder at one of my co-founders at iRobot. And
I was gonna ask if it was Rodney Brooks, like who was
yeah,
the yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, I made first thing I did there was I made a candy dispenser for a robot that it wanted to be able to open doors, but it didn't have an arm. So that the idea is it would just give people candy to open the door for it. So it's like we took a very unusual strategy from the
Mhm.
get-go, and very pragmatic.
That's awesome. Erica, how about you? Where'd you grow up? What were you like as a child?
Oh, interesting. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was also sort of a super science nerd. Didn't build things explicitly, but I started working on an independent science fair project when I was 11, and it was in virology. Actually, I was looking at a a plant that had anti-herpes simplex virus properties. So herpes, of course, is the cold sore virus. So as you can imagine, my social life, I was dubbed the virus girl in middle school, and better yet, I was the herpes virus girl. So that was, the real clincher to the whole thing. But I loved working in the lab. I loved, cells and viruses and biology and chemistry, and worked on that project all the way through middle school and high school, did many of the big science fairs, um, most of them, in fact. And then, as you look at the kids who are older than you and where do they go to school, and they all go to MIT typically when they're super science nerds. So that's where I applied early. I got in, and that's where I went. So, I was very passionate about math and science, and loved the lab, and was a pretty proactive. I was kind of a pushy, proactive kid. So, when you're growing up, and you have your high school and you have your resources, but many of the bits that I needed in order to do these experiments required going outside of high school. So I just pack up all my stuff and drove to Stanford one day. We live close to Stanford University, and just walked into the chemistry department and said, "Hey, I'm a 10th grader and I need a mentor, please. Is there anyone here who would be willing to help?" And I remember the day I went there, the head of the department was actually there. He was on vacation, but he was in his shorts And they said no one's ever seen him in shorts, apparently, but in a hat. I walked in, I knocked on his door, and there he was rummaging around. And I said, I need help. And so he pointed me at another professor, and that professor ended up helping me out with the research for that year. And I would drive to Stanford and, do that. And the virology lab, that was, I got on the phone and just started calling labs saying I'm a student and I'm interested in virology and I want to do this science fair project. I have this idea. And back in the old days, right, you had yellow pages. So I would just make calls. And a lot of these labs, they actually called my parents back because they said, there's something wrong with your child. She's calling labs saying that she's really excited about science and she's like 13 and are you sure you know what she's doing in your basement? So all of them, it's really hard to find someone who could be a mentor when you're young, but the director of one of the local public health labs actually called back and said, sure, I am here every day from 4 to, free from 4 to 5, 6 o'clock at night. If you want to come, I'm happy to help in any way. So I would go every day and he would give me stacks of books that, it's like I couldn't read. So he's like, okay, you read as much as you can and you come with questions. And I'd come with a million questions and he was there every day. So, how important is mentorship? How important it is to have people who support and believe, even from a really young age. It's just, these are the defining moments, right? And then, of course, you go to MIT and pursue the same thing because you're passionate about it. So,
But the admissions person at MIT must have seen your application was like, yes. Okay, this
matters
person's not just smart. This person's a go-getter, has, mentorship from Stanford and like everything you accomplished at that age is extraordinary.
for sure. It makes a huge difference, but you've got to be a little pushy to get that.
Yep. Okay. All right. So going back to Colin, uh, you went off with Helen Grenier and Rodney Brooks to start iRobot. So talk about the early days of building a company.
Well, we did it kind of in a way that you would rarely mentor a budding entrepreneur, in that we had this cool technology and no idea what to do with it. And we were completely unfundable, but we had passion. So, we wanted to build the robots that we were promised as kids. And
R2D2.
Rosie the robot. I mean, it was all the things. And it was the origin of iRobot was a little bit, if not us who, if not now when, we're used to living like grad students, that, we can find some really cheap space. We can build. There was a need for various research labs to have robots. And so the original concept for iRobot was private mission to the moon, sell the movie rights, which, so we were one of the first people to fail at that, although we did build a rover that led directly, ultimately, years later, as the Sojourner rover that made it to Mars. So that was cool, but not really a business. We made a little bit of money selling prototype robots to research labs. And we went 6.5 years, never having enough money in the bank to make payroll every month, and always finding a way of making it. Nobody left because the mission to create this future of robotics was so strong. And we just went from application to application to application. And really the breakthrough was when we started winning some defense contracts for building bomb disposal robots. And that helped us fund some of the future growth. But it was a very hand-to-mouth journey for a very long time. And without an incredibly powerful mission and desire to make robots real, it wouldn't have worked.
And if my memory is correct, there was even a product in the toy category, My Real Baby, there's a YouTube video out there still that you could see that product in action. So
Oh yeah, I mean the Roomba story is just in a nutshell. Um, we were working with Johnson Wax on industrial floor cleaning. They had wanted to build big supermarket cleaning robots, and so we had learned a little bit about cleaning. Uh, we had done this work with the Defense Department on mine hunting. That was some of the original contracts. And then uh, after the Tamaguchi's success, um, we were like, okay, we can do AI and we can, instead of making a virtual uh, artificial creature, let's build a real one and build this My Real Baby product with Hasbro. And Roomba was actually mine hunting algorithms from the Defense Department combined with low cost robotics from Hasbro combined with cleaning technology from Johnson Wax. So really all Roomba needed to come into existence was some crazy company who had built expertise in mine hunting toys and industrial floor care, just randomly to come into existence and decide to bring these technologies together. And it would have been easy to do. Anyone could have done it.
I'd never put those three together to understand like that was the genesis of product market fit for entrepreneurs. And like,
Innovation is at the edges where these seams of different things you're working in, suddenly you're like, wait a minute, we can do this now. And it's like, wow, and here we go. I mean, it was really a crazy serendipitous coming together of technologies and passion to make it possible.
yeah, and obviously went on to be a beloved, like I have a name, we call it Alice, based on the Brady Bunch, so we love our Roomba. It's an i7. It's an amazing thing. So, obviously iRobot on to go public, but I hope you are enjoying this interview. Just a brief word from our sponsor. As a longtime champion in the local startup ecosystem, Silicon Valley Bank supports innovative companies with the solutions and financing they need through every stage of growth. With more than 1,500 bankers and relationship advisors and 42 billion in loans through Q2 2024, SVB delivers the right people, service, and resources to support your entire financial journey. Learn more at svb.com. Let's talk about Ixcela. So what is the company all about? Because a lot of this stems from your research, Erika, right?
Yeah. So, it's a 12-year-old company. And my co-founder, a gentleman who has been in this sort of space he's in his 80s, so he's been doing this research for a very long time. This is a metabolomics test, meaning that we're looking at small molecules in blood. So this is a pinprick blood test, capillary blood test. You poke your finger, you bleed about 2 or 3 drops of blood, 21 microliters for those who really want to know exactly, but a very small amount of blood on a almost like a little Q-tip. You close it up, you send it to us, and we look at currently 11 different molecules that are associated with the health of the gut. So when I say that, these are molecules that show the diversity of the gut. They show whether or not there's any damage to the gut lining, intestinal permeability. You have molecules associated with, are we getting the right nutrients in our diet? You have molecules associated with inflammation. And so they comprehensively tell a very interesting story about, what's going on with this individual. Is there a gut dysbiosis? Is there a nutritional problem? Or is there too much physical, emotional stress that is happening? And all of these molecules also tell a story around, is it explicitly a gut issue? Is there effect to your energy, your fatigue, your ability to process your nutrients? Is there an issue on the, emotional side? Is there an issue on the immune system side, right? So they tell a story individually and then comprehensively about the state of that person's sort of being. So you take the test, and then on the back end, we have medically supervised dietitians who have been trained in everything from oncological dietetics to professional athletics dietetics, who can take the results of the report, which is about 50 pages long, and tell you what to do. So the report itself is, AI generated, but the conversation that you have with the dietitian, which is so incredibly important because we're here to try to get people to change their lifestyles, change their habits. This is very hard, to take in their medical information, take in their willingness to change, and couple that with the actual hard data from what is the problem, and then to create personalized programs that will help these individuals with whatever medical issue they might be facing. And so currently we are in what we're calling the supportive care space. So this is supportive care for patients who are dealing with GI issues, oncology, mental health, cardiovascular issues, metabolic health, weight issues, so on and so forth. So no, we don't cure cancer, but for example, if a patient is undergoing chemotherapy, radiation, immunotherapy, there's a whole slew of different side effects that are happening to this person. We can help to support quite a few of those. If the person is in menopause, perimenopause, again, there's a whole slew of different side effects and symptoms that the person is under, going under, many of which we're able to help with. So, right now there's the test, the program, but we're in this sort of supportive care space for some of these chronic conditions that across the board have sleep, energy, fatigue, GI concerns, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, constipation, energy levels, brain fog, etc., as some of the primary symptoms.
We need the origin story, though, Erika.
The origin
Yes, yes. How
story.
did the idea come to fruition?
Yeah, so interestingly, so this is quite many, many years ago. I was Miss Massachusetts in the Miss America program. And I was doing an appearance at the VA hospital up here in Bedford. And the head of research, actually, I had just graduated from MIT, and he said, "Well, what are you going to do with your life?" And I said, "I don't know. I think I'm going to either go to grad school or med school or maybe both. I don't know." And he said, "Well, there's someone you have to meet." So I said, "Fantastic. I'm happy to do that." So he introduced me to my co-founder, Wayne Matson, who he had just sold his company, which that company then was sold and resold and now is actually owned by Thermo Fisher. But he said, "This guy is amazing. He has hundreds of patents. One of his relatives has won the Nobel Prize. He's just the coolest guy." And so I got on the phone with Wayne, and what I just never have forgotten is he said, "Look, I study things that really matter to people. I'm not here to prove the 30th digit of pi and publish a paper. Don't care. I'm here to change things, to really help people, right? Change the face of healthcare." So I'm like, "Excellent. I love this. This sounds great. Sign me up." So I started working with Wayne that year in the lab. And then he ended up getting a professorship, an appointment at BU Med. I applied to BU Med for grad school, ended up getting in. So my PhD program was done there in a sort of a collaborative project between Wayne and Kathy Costello and her lab in mass spectrometry. And then after that, right, so this is many years um, of doing all of this, Wayne and I sat down because we realized so much of the research that he had accumulated over the years deserved to be brought out into the real world. It wasn't just a glorified science fair project, right? These are markers that are really important to health and wellness and disease. And if you can correct them and help people to feel better, then you could really make a difference from the healthcare perspective. And so we decided to start a business.
Well, let me tell this part.
Okay.
Because a lot of people think starting companies is some elaborate process and something that is completely inaccessible. And so, the moment when companies get started and you can go point at it, I think is worth talking about because honestly, it makes it more accessible. So Erica and Wayne have been doing this amazing research and really life-changing work. And I would hear about it, every day and said, um, have you thought about doing something with us? And Erica said, well, of course, I'd love to have Wayne as an advisor, if I was going to do this. And I said, okay, so let's have a dinner. Let's have a dinner with Wayne, and we're going to recruit him to be our advisor. And so we'll get a nice couple bottles of wine, make sure his wife is there so that she can, because
Make sure they all drink the wine before you ask the question.
that's right, drink the wine, and they'll do the whole thing. And so we show up when we have this dinner. We tell Wayne about, Erica's telling Wayne about the idea and that how she'd love him to be involved. Now, remember, Wayne is running a lab at this point, at a very prestigious lab. And Erica says, well, and I'd like you to be involved, to advise and help. And you could see it's like, okay, Wayne is thinking about this. And he's thinking, okay. And he says, okay, I'm in. We're like,
You're in?
what does that
Sure?
mean? Is that, and it's like, yeah, I'll shut down my lab and I'm going to join you and we're going to found this company.
Wow. Okay.
And it was like, okay. It's like, when you really have something that people believe in, and they see the opportunity, it's a magic moment. And that dinner, I'll just remember forever, because I was, I was just an observer of this moment where
There was the second part of the dinner, though, where Jane, his wife, made him a
Yeah.
deal where she got to build a new barn if he got to start a new business. So there was like there was the spousal negotiation that happened between Wayne and Jane. And she was like, okay, if you're gonna do this, then I get the new barn. So she had to
That's
commit to the
awesome.
new barn.
All right, so you've been building this company, which it's a hard company to build, and the impact that you are having. So let's talk about the research and the study you've done with Roper St. Francis Healthcare, because cancer, that's everybody is affected through relatives or friends, and it's so let's talk about how the impact has been there.
Totally. And you're right. We had to do everything from the validation of the science to the creation of the test to the certification of the CLIA lab. Everything was built from scratch. So not, if you said, well, what was there before you started? Not much. There was the science, the Wayne's work, looking for the the metabolites themselves and the science that said these are important. But from there, creating a consumer-friendly device, validating it, CLIA lab, everything had to be done, from scratch. So the work with Roper St. Francis is extremely important because, to your point, everybody is touched by cancer, whether you've had it yourself, you can count on your hand, right? People that you know in your life who are touched by this. And, when you think about the way that the healthcare system works, oncologists, oncological, surgeons, they specialize in killing the cancer. That is their job. And yet the individual who is going through this process, is a person. So the treatments often kill the cancer, but they don't treat the person. And so, from the moment of diagnosis, the stress, the mental health implications, just what do I do now, right? What do I eat? How can I feel better? How can I prepare myself more effectively for these different modalities, chemotherapy and immunotherapy, right? Which in many ways are targeted. They're targeted at rapidly replicating cells, right? I mean, that's its purpose. You just don't know what your body is going to feel like. And there's a great body of evidence that shows that if you can really help to improve the strength of the gut and strengthen that your ability to endure and to get a positive impact from the therapies is significantly elevated. So when we met Roper, they were looking for a program, a service that was able to address the sort of two sides. So there was the sort of hospital workings and financial side. So when a patient, for example, doesn't feel well during treatment, they typically stop treatment. And this is something that loses, money for the hospital. Or if the patient is readmitted to the ER, this is a problem for the hospital. Missed therapies, ER readmissions, or readmissions to the hospital in general. And then there's the quality of life, right? Because if the patient is having a lousy time, then they might not come back to the hospital, or they might switch hospitals. So they were very interested in is there a program that could help improve the health of patients and improve their entire health journey while they're going through this very difficult time in their lives? And we knew from our own work that the Ixcela program was really good at helping with a number of the symptoms that are very common to people who are undergoing these therapies. So, ultimately we applied to be part of this program and were selected. And so for a year, we worked with the hospital in running this pilot program where patients, breast cancer patients, colon cancer, we had stomach cancer, lung cancer, pancreatic cancers, were brought into the program. And we spent essentially 90 days with them trying to see if we could, improve symptoms. And then also, right, the hospital was also monitoring some of the factors that I had mentioned before that were important to them. And so, the pilot concluded and was extremely successful in that, there's data showing that, patients experienced significantly less fatigue and brain fog and feelings of GI distress. There's just a whole litany, a list of all the different symptomatic improvements that folks felt. They also talked about feeling more empowered because they, again, you don't know what to do. Nobody tells you, eat these things. This is the process. These mindfulness steps will help to reduce your stress and anxiety. Even just going out and doing some light exercise in certain cases. So from that perspective, and then from the Roper side, I think the results were significant. They saw a reduction in some of these, financial metrics that were very, very important to them. So the CEO of the hospital, called the pilot, a wild success. And we have, dozens of testimonials, which is amazing, from patients who are willing to come out and share their stories and talk about their experience with Ixcela. So, again, it was humbling in many ways, but just to know that the product and the service is able to support people at this extremely difficult and challenging time, and that, the data really shows that, and people are willing to come and talk about it is really awesome. And we were just very excited about the study.
Well, so the business of Ixcela, are you looking to build a company that is, mainly building relationships with healthcare organizations where patients are referred to you based on a condition that this could significantly improve? Or is this more like, hey, we're going to go direct to consumer and build a consumer brand?
It's a great question. Right now, the focus, because of the success that we've had with the oncology program, we've had some success as well in mental health, and obviously the work we do in GI. We are very specifically looking for, oncologists, mental health providers, GI folks who will help us to go into clinics and help patients. So more on the medical side, but honestly, you can go to the website, you can self-refer. So if you're a patient with any of these different conditions, and you can look that up on the website, but you can self-refer into the program. One of our navigators will call, talk to you about the program, talk to you about your symptoms, and say, is this something that we can actually help you with? Or you can get referred in by a healthcare professional, an MD, an NP, a PA, or any really, a healthcare professional can refer you in as well. I don't know if that answers the question, but I think that is our focus and our target right now. We have had, because of some of the press that we've received, folks have, with cancer, have self-referred themselves in because they read the article and have been looking for this kind of support. So they will, they will go to the website and then call us and work with us directly.
And is it, well, two questions. Is this something that insurance will typically cover? And is it something that's an ongoing, hey, my
Oh,
mental, state that, 6 months later I test again and see that there's improvement, or hey, I got to do something different.
yeah, absolutely. So currently the test itself is not covered by insurance. This is very difficult to get insurance to cover. The dietitian visits, we literally just signed the paperwork. So in a couple of weeks, insurance will cover the dietitian visits. You can use your HSA or unrestricted FSA cards for the test and the dietitian services. So if you have that will also cover the test. Um, and that is the long-term goal, is to maintain that. The dietitian visits, uh, are typically coupled with the test. So the first thing you do is you take the test and you have your first visit. If the dietitian and the patient decide that they want to continue together, the patient can just schedule their next visit with the dietitian, and they can work with each other for as long as they want and as long as they deem that there is progress and that they're benefiting from the program. Typically, folks work with us for several months at least, because that's how long, it takes to start seeing a difference. In terms of testing on the back end, it depends on the individual. I think there are people who, love to test and want to see the progress that they've made. If you see clinical improvements, someone comes and says, I'm not sleeping, and suddenly they're sleeping after 2 months, then, maybe it's not necessary to take, a secondary test, because clinically you've actually solved the problem that you've been working on. So I think that's just case by case basis, and that is a decision that's made between the patient and our team.
So, Colin, you obviously were co-founder, CEO, member of the board at iRobot. You're on the board at Ixcela, so you're very involved with this company too. So, what have you noticed as kind of like it's two different, completely different landscapes of business models and businesses and what you guys are actually doing. So, what have you learned as being part of Ixcela?
Well, I mean, I think that starting and trying to do anything entrepreneurial has many, many commonalities. And so that helping Erica navigate things like building her talent, building her go-to-market strategy, building the organization. Those are things that, pattern recognition works very well, and I've been able to help advise. Certainly on the medical side, it's a great learning adventure for me, and the passion for building things, trying to understand how the test works, trying to understand really the human body is just a great machine in so many ways, and so that I have fun sort of asking questions around, well, how does this work, and if you can help me understand this idea of, okay, you've got this giant tube, you've got stuff coming in, you have bacteria which are turning it into different kinds of building blocks, and if you don't have the right building blocks, your body's going to try to do what it needs to build anyways. It's just not going to build as good a solution, and so that trying to translate these medical processes into sort of more engineering processes, the way that my brain works, I think has been fabulously exciting for me to understand, and also have maybe there's been some benefit back to the telling of the Ixcela story to others in ways that are easier to understand, because it does get very complicated and very medical very quickly.
Well, I want to, since I have two amazing experts here, talk about two different industries. So, Erica, personalized medicine is definitely an area that is tremendous momentum. I mean, there's companies like Inside Tracker in Cambridge, and there's, Whoop is, personalized around, sleep and recovery and athletic performance. And obviously, there's a whole slew of companies that have gotten funded. So, with the advancement, you talked about AI being part of the solution of creating, the test and the end report and results. So what's the impact of the current state of personalized medicine or personalized care, and coupling that with, AI's advancements over the past couple of years?
Yeah, so it's interesting, like I said, have a health intake form that the patient fills out. It's pretty comprehensive. And then you take the test. And then, you know, we've programmed, right, this to be able to be, take the data from your health history questionnaire and your metabolite data and to create these programs. So it spits out this report, and the report is, it has here are all the foods you should eat based on your food preferences and based on your health, based on your metabolites. You have your your mindfulness programs, you have fitness programs that have been built by Olympic caliber athletes, again, that look at, if you have inflammation markers, so everything is adjusted to kind of be for you. Now, and the report is amazing, but what we have found as well is that it is extremely important to still have a person in the mix. And even if you go on our Google reviews and you look at what people talk about, and those Google reviews are fascinating because you've got Olympians, you have Ironman, winners, multiple time winners, you've got cancer survivors, you've got regular people just looking to lose weight. What do they talk about over and over again? It's the interpersonal interaction that they have with the dietitians. Why is it important? Well, because, right, the AI can only know so much. And if it spits out something and you're reading it and you say, this is a kind of a generic example, but I love my coffee and I drink 6 cups a day. This is what helps me to make it through my day. And this is how I've been living my life. And the report, of course, says you drink too much coffee. And that's why you don't sleep. And so, a person might just write it off and say, no way, you ain't taking away my coffee. But being able to have a conversation with someone to say, I really love my coffee. And if you take this away from me, what am I going to do? Because I'm not going to be able to function in the afternoon. And you start to unravel additional issues. And you have to then focus on helping the person. Okay, let's start with this one step. See how you do. No coffee after 3. Let's do tea instead, see how you sleep. And then, the next week you do it again, and because there is no way that the AI can know everything. It's not yet, at least, maybe eventually, but having the ability to say to someone, these are the challenges, this is how I've, what I feel, how can I make this better? This is working, this is not working. Is, I think, one of the reasons why we're just so good at what we do, because we're able to make these fine adjustments and we're able to meet people where they want to be met. Because a lot of us have habits that we don't want to change or that are really difficult to change because of the lifestyle that we live. And, you could say to someone, yeah, spend 2 more hours a day on mindfulness and go and start exercising. And the person's like, I don't know how and when. And, I have 3 children and like, I don't have time for this. So much of, I think, personalization, yes, very important. It has to be personalized. You have to have the test in order to have the data, in order to know where to begin with the person. Again, even if you went to see a dietitian and they took a look at you and they said, well, Keith, you look pretty good. I would suggest eating leafy greens and more fruits and vegetables. Well, okay, but what if you need a low FODMAP diet and every apple that you eat causes inflammation? Now you have diarrhea because you didn't even know that you had a dysbiosis. And so instead of eating apples, you should be eating raspberries. But you didn't know that because you didn't take the test. So having that test really helps us to understand you and then to personalize for you so that the recommendations we're giving, which could all be healthy, may not be right for you. So again, this is the test and the personalization. But I do also think that just sending people tons of information without context, without answering questions, and without meeting them where they are, it just doesn't work.
I agree. There's different, I mean, I think most industries, you still need the personal touch. Like data is data, but the interpretation of that data, I mean, talent acquisition and recruitment, there's so many different variables that go into hiring somebody that AI is not going to be the solution to that at all. But
No.
all right, Colin, so robotics. Um, are you
Yeah.
familiar with a company called 10 Beauty?
The is that the nail?
Manicure machine? Yes.
They A little bit, in that an ex iRobot guy is one of the uh, and not chief designers of it, and so the so I only know a little bit, and I'm excited every time I hear about an ex iRoboteer who's gone off and helped create something else awesome. I feel like that is a testament to the journey that we created, but this idea that AI can help machines extend into new industries, I think is very, very much exciting. I mean, it's um, you always have to be careful to well understand the toolbox you have to use and not try to imagine that it can do more than it currently can. And the toolbox changes every month and probably within AI every week in what it can do. And so that it's a full-time job trying to make sure that there's a matching of what this new toolbox can do for value creation for the consumer. But certainly the types of tasks that robots can take on is changing very, very quickly. And what I like about companies like 10 Beauty is they're trying to find practical value creating opportunities where the technology is enabled a solution that creates more value than the cost. You know, every new robot company that is using AI, shouldn't be a Hail Mary, we're going to build the next humanoid strategy. And so that I love sort of saying, okay, we have a new toolbox. What can we do? And how are we going to actually create value um, uh, along the way? I think is questions that need to be answered, even with the rate of change of AI.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring up the 10 beauty example is just that reason. It's a, it's a problem that is incredibly hard to solve because everyone's fingers are different.
And
And it's
the
a
accuracy of that machine is insane in order to
insane.
make it look good.
Yeah. So I had Alex Sishu on the podcast and I was just geeking out over and it's not that I'm in the market for manicures. I was more geeking out that this is so complex to build and that they actually built it and it's coming to market and their business model. I mean, it's B2B to C. So they're going to the Ultas, the
Yeah,
Sephora's, and it's going to be there, and you use it as a consumer. It's not direct to consumer sitting on your, in your bedroom or something. So so it's like the HP printer cartridge where it's like, here's the cartridge for the paint, and
yeah.
that's like a recurring business model that's just going to be like massive if, so
And again, and it's a find a need, solve a need, and AI is a toolkit. Erica is using AI to help deliver the personalization so that the experience of going to Ixcela is uniform and hyper personalized
And consistent, right? The
and
consistency.
consistent.
It's important to have consistency for these things because when opinion starts coming in, well, I don't know, maybe this, and then humans. So consistency is really key. I think that's where it's very important.
Yeah, and then 10 Beauty, I mean, it's okay. Let's find a problem. And I think it's great. But it's this entrepreneurial mindset that it starts with customer benefit. And, people are willing to spend money in order to get a manicure, to get their nails done. Can we use amazing technology to give people a personalized experience and greater accessibility to it? And yeah, it's B2B to C. I don't know very much about the company at all, but 10
yeah.
years from now,
it's the Jetson moment where it's like you could see in a Jetson cartoon the nails getting done in a machine and just pulling out and boom, done, right? So I'm like, we're finally getting to this point of consumerization of robotics for different use cases. You know, the Roomba was the first generation. Now entrepreneurs working on kind of this next stratosphere of whatever it's going to end up being. So it's exciting.
It is a uh, for a guy like me, builder from birth, this is Candyland time, right? Because we just got gifted one of the coolest new tools for creation and navigating the practical use of this new technology for building a better world is just again, I think we're all blessed to be at this moment of time where we can come up with ideas for new things and uh, reduce them to practice where they deliver more value than they cost to create, and new industries are formed.
I hesitate to ask this question because it's so cliche, but I have to. So, what's it like having dinner at your house where the two of you are just like world-class entrepreneurs, deep thinkers, builders? So, I just imagine like, or do you guys like, you know what, we're having dinner, let's put the business stuff to the side.
All right, so let me describe
Oh,
our
oh,
meal.
oh, I want to get to the beginning of this, so just to set
We're
it up.
probably thinking the same thing. Go for it.
So we have a 3.5-year-old. So the conversations at dinner have nothing to do with entrepreneurship. So I'm gonna leave it at that. So
And
Colin,
we're
go ahead.
talking about, yeah, we're talking about trucks. We're
Yeah.
talking about, what happens when Dingo Dog, the race car, is flying around the curve too fast and exceeding the speed limit. And Officer Flossie has to arrest them and send Dingo Dog into jail for the count of 18 before he's let out so that he can go and commit another heinous crime of knocking over the silo in the farm.
So
So,
okay, so one of Rex's favorite books is Richard Scarry's How Everything Works in Trucks. And so that's where Dingo Dog and Officer Flossie are characters in this book. And so he has all these little cars that he gets from, from Target. They're called Driven, or the Tonka Tinies. And so we have these little sets and we play act with him. What happens when Dingo Dog does the wrong thing and Officer Flossie has to. And then we practice counting with him, right? So we say count to 18, or we pick a random number, 21, he has to count. That's dinner.
And you're teaching
yeah,
them physics with the, going too fast around the curve.
yeah. I am incredibly relieved that he loves Duplo and Lego. So, I would still love, Rex, whatever, but it is I'm very gratified that he and I in the mornings we can go and build with Lego and it's a wonderful moment. And meals we've discovered, if he's busy worrying about the
Dingo Dog. He
the
eats
poor
better.
behavior of Dingo Dog, then he's really not thinking about whether he's eating the right food or not. And most anything will go in his mouth, if he's imagining other things. So it's a parenting strategy that is also uh, who knows whether it's best practice, but it worked for us.
Hey, as long as it works. Erica, you studied music at MIT, so are you a musician too? Or like,
Yes, so I play the piano and I wish I played more now than I do, but I went to the San Francisco Conservatory of Music when I was a kid all the way through graduation and minored in music at MIT. I love music. It's just, it brings happiness to my soul. And ever since day one, we were doing music, singing songs. Now that he's a little older, we play in the sandbox more than listen to music, but he loves music. So, he knows all of the lyrics from the 20 Truck songs and he sings them. When he wakes up in the morning, he sings waking up in the morning or from naps. Unless he doesn't feel well, that's how we know the difference. But music is just it's always been such an important part of my life, and I'm hoping, the little guy's life as well. And yeah, music is great.
And Colin, you have an IMDb page, so what's it like being an actor in a major motion picture?
Well, it was a grueling experience, and you know the I was I'm not an actor, uh,
And this
but
is
I've had
21 for context, the movie 21.
there's a movie 21 about the MIT blackjack team, and unbeknownst to me, the headquarters of the MIT blackjack team was the fifth floor of the fraternity that I was in while I was at MIT. I just thought they were antisocial up there, but they were actually engaged
They were
and
flying to Vegas every
Making lots
weekend.
of money. Yeah.
Yeah.
making lots of money. And the hero in the movie, um, in real life, didn't work in the clothing store in Harbor Square like they portrayed him. He actually worked for me.
No
And
way.
yeah, he was an assistant marketing intern. I think that's the lowest title imaginable to string together. And he would tell us stories about. I started to learn about the MIT blackjack team based on him telling us stories of his adventures, and eventually left iRobot to go dedicate himself to these noble pursuits. And so in the movie, when they were looking for a robot for one of the scenes, they uh, came to iRobot to borrow the robots, and my head of PR at the time said, "Sure, but Colin gets to be in the movie
No way.
just for fun." And so they gave me a bit part in the movie, and I was immediately a prima donna because they told me I changed my line. Um,
An MIT professor would never say this.
That's what I said. It just doesn't make any sense. And so, I delivered my line, and the winner of this year's 209 contest for excellence in robotics goes to the team of Connolly and Kazazi. That was my line. And apparently the director turned to my head of PR and says, perfect. That was just perfect. You just can't coach geek. So,
That's
I didn't get cut. I made it into the movie, and now I have my own IMDb page. Another speaking role, and I am in the guild.
And we get checks every so often for like $14.62. So
that is awesome. That is so royalties.
royalties.
That's fantastic. Cool. All right. Well, I could talk to the two of you for hours upon hours, but Erika and Colin, thanks so much for taking the time to walk us through your professional journeys and obviously all the meaningful work you guys are up to.
Thank you so much.